is up, weather enthusiasts? I'm your host, Pat's Path Predictor. Let's get right into the weather. Alright, so here's the situation we have for you, ladies and gentlemen. We have a lot to talk to you about today. Once again, this is going to be a very busy next 48 to 72 hours on the Pat's Path Predictor channel. We had two moderate risks issued within an hour and a half apart from each other for the severe weather outbreak that is going to be happening tomorrow and Saturday. And I would go as far to say that we are looking at a potential tornado outbreak with this as well over the span of 2 to 3 days because of all the parameters I am seeing, and conditions continue to get better and better for that. And we also are looking at some other stuff where there is going to be a little bit of uncertainty in regards to how exactly it's going to pan out. But by and large, this is looking like a big event, an event we have not seen since at least March 31st, 2023, when we had over 100 tornadoes occur on that day, at least, and we'll have to see how this pans out. I think we could see a similar situation in terms of number of tornadoes as that. In terms of strength, we're not 100% sure, but we were looking at a lot of stuff last night on stream, and we've been seeing some very concerning parameters we're going to show you in a bit. Before we do that, we have our Storms United code that we have out from John, our head admin at Storms United. We have a hatched code yellow, a regular code yellow, a hatched code orange, a regular code red, and a hatched code red in effect for all for this entire event. The regular code yellow is for severe weather. That's generally in that slight risk area that is not expected to see significantly severe weather. The hatched code yellow is that 15% significantly severe portion of it. The orange code is the enhanced risk that is going, and we are going to be seeing significantly severe weather. The regular code red is, yes, it is a regular code red, but we haven't hatched it out just yet because we're still monitoring the threat level, and the issuance for the moderate risk, according to what we're seeing from the SPC, is mainly for straight line winds. And we're going to have to continue to watch that as well. But the hatched code red, that's our main event for Saturday, and that is because we have a 45 hatched risk on day 3 for the from the SPC. You do not typically see a lot of moderate day 3 risks. It's an extremely rare type of situation, and it's only issued when there's a lot of confidence and there's a lot of good parameters for severe weather. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and get to the SPC's outlook right here. We're going to go ahead and start with tomorrow, since that for me is the most pressing issue because of how rapidly this has escalated. We now have a moderate risk for Iowa, Missouri, Illinois, and parts of Kentucky and Tennessee and a little bit of Arkansas as well, encompassing 6.6 million people in St. Louis, Springfield, Peoria, Decatur, and Champaign, Illinois. This is going to be a very serious problem right here because what's warranting this is a 45% hatched wind risk, ladies and gentlemen. 30% hatch risk around here, and then 15 over. Well, I've heard some terms about maybe derecho or something like that being thrown around. Right now, we don't know if that's going to happen or not, so I'm going to refrain from saying, oh, this is going to be a derecho setup, because we don't know 100% of everything right here. What we do know is the wind risk is what's really driving this significantly severe risk. The hail risk is the second biggest risk we're seeing right here. It is more concentrated around St. Louis, Cape Girardeau, west of Paducah, and those areas right there, encompassing about 4.5 million people over there. But we have a 30% risk of 2-inch hail or greater happening within 25 miles of a point. And as you will see in the summary in just a second, it might be even greater than that. Tornado risk, 10 hatched all around, mainly playing it safe. I like this call. Honestly, personally, I would have been okay if they did a 10 regular too, but by and large, considering what we're seeing with the recent runs, I think 10 hatched is a good call because there is the chance for significantly severe tornadoes with all that wind shear. Here's the summary we have from the Storm Prediction Center. A regional outbreak of severe storms is likely over the lower mid-Missouri and Mississippi valleys and lower Ohio Valley late Friday afternoon into Saturday morning. Tornadoes, several of which could be strong, widespread damaging winds with gusts from 70 to 90 miles per hour, and scattered large hail up to baseball size will be possible. You heard that right, ladies and gentlemen. Baseball-sized hail is possible in that 30% hatched risk area. So if you're watching this from the St. Louis metro area, Cape Girardeau, Springfield, anywhere in that risk, You need to pay very close attention to that, and if you have cars and all that stuff, you need to get those prepared, get them covered up, put them in the garage if you have one, just that kind of stuff right there. I'm not going to go too deep into the dynamics of it today in terms of what's driving this, mainly because we have so much to talk about and I have so much computer runs I need to go over. But I will highlight this last part of the paragraph right here very quickly. Given the fast low to mid-level flow regime, embedded gusts from 60 to 80 knots should be common along the squall-embedded supercell tornado threat. The latter will be greater within the southeast extent where a ribbon of somewhat richer low-level moisture should reach the mid-Mississippi Valley. Convection should tend to weaken overnight more quickly on the north end of the outlook area as it outpaces the confined surface-based instability plume, but some overnight damaging wind gusts and tornado potential should be possible and persist across the lower Ohio Valley. So that's the situation we're looking at. We also have the enhanced risk from Iowa all the way down to Mississippi and Alabama. There could be some severe weather there as well. And depending on how that pans out will depend on what happens on Saturday's risk. But we'll have to see how it happens. And ultimately, I wouldn't be too concerned, I would say, of the system overperforming in the south and kind of tapping into the moisture that is needed for the moderate risk on Saturday, mainly because the models have shifted the worst of the stuff further and further and further to the north. And it's going to, in my opinion, leave the stuff going on the deep south relatively intact, and I'll go ahead and show you that. Here's what we have going on with the HRRR pulled up for you right here. We're going to show you simulated reflectivity, then go over some parameters like CAPE, shear, all of that stuff, and then we're going to pluck some soundings from some other runs as well. Here's what we have going on. Convection starts initiating around 4 o'clock in the afternoon in Iowa and parts of Kansas and Missouri as well, and this starts to move really quickly. We're looking at this moving at about, I'd say, 60 miles per hour in terms of storm motion right here. And what happens is we have this massive squall line, especially in Iowa and Missouri, that starts to organize and develop on the front end of it. But then as time goes on, you're starting to notice a more semi-discrete mode in parts of central Missouri, east central Missouri, and southern Illinois. And that is what I'm very concerned about, because the models have shifted so far to the north that St. Louis, instead of maybe getting a massive squall line with semi-discrete stuff being in the southern part of the viewing area the metro area. Instead, what we're seeing is the squall line moving further up to the north and the semi-discrete stuff moving through the St. Louis metro area, which greatly increases your hail risk and greatly increases your tornado risk. That also does decrease the wind risk to some extent, but at that point, the main threat would be tornadoes and damaging winds. This system continues to show more and more uptrends right here, and it's kind of getting harder and harder to keep up with, considering how quickly these are coming in. But here's the 12Z we have right here. Then things start to calm down. In terms of timing, if you're in the St. Louis area, you're looking at least according to the HRRR, things starting to move through around 10, 11 o'clock at night, I would say, but I think 7 to 9 would be a more realistic thing you need to watch for, and we'll pay attention to that on the Pat's Path Predictor channel. And then you have this convection moving into Indiana, those areas as well overnight. Things start to calm down a bit, and that's generally what we're looking at. Let's go ahead and take a quick look at the cloud cover, because what we're noticing is we're going to start seeing some clouds moving in overnight across a lot of this region in the moderate risk. Then as time goes on and as the morning comes around 9, 10 o'clock, you start seeing a lot of clearing happening, and that is always a very bad sign in terms of severe weather, because that gives you more time for diurnal heating to take place. It gives more time for the sun to heat up the ground and allow for that to happen. Temperatures continue to increase, and you also are seeing a lot of moisture advection as well from the Gulf. That's going to really help enhance this. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of the parameters. Let's go ahead and look at temperature, because temperature is going to be in the 80s. In the lower 80s for a lot of these areas, actually. We're looking at around 81 degrees for St. Louis, around 80 for Springfield. Champaign is going to be around 79. I would say, and then this convection starts initializing. Let's go ahead and take a look at the dew point temperature around 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Dew points aren't particularly the best. There is a little bit of dry air that moves in, but there should be more than enough moisture, especially as it starts to enter the eastern Missouri, that will ultimately allow for this system in the convection to really initiate. But I will say, if you see those dew points increase by maybe another 2 to 3 degrees above average, above what we're seeing here, you're going to see a lot bigger of a discrete threat than what we were thinking about previously. So that's what we're looking at right here. Relative humidity gradually increases, I would say. This is pretty interesting. There's not really that much humidity until the storms start to initiate, so that'll be interesting to see how that pans out. And I'll pay attention to it as well, but ultimately that's what we're looking at. Cape is also particularly not the best right here, although in parts of St. Louis and parts of Missouri right here, we're looking at Cape cracking around anywhere from 1,100 to 1,800 joules per kilogram. So we're going to have to pay very close attention to that as well. Supercell composite continues to increase. Supercell composite peaks around, I would say, like 7 to 8 according to the HER, although there are other models that are showing higher. Like, let's go ahead and show you the NAM, for example. The NAM is a lot greater with the supercell composite, up to 12. SIG-TOR parameter as well. It generally has this the SIG-TOR greatest threat for SIG-TORs. Significantly strong tornadoes, that is, and further to the south, typically that's what we're seeing. But I also want to go ahead and show you another run that's showing this as well. We have the NAM nest as well. The NAM nest is really whipping with the tornado threat and really whipping with the supercell composite. I actually want to go ahead and pluck a sounding out of the St. Louis area around 7 o'clock in the evening, just to kind of get a gander at what the environment is going to be looking like at that current point. Because daylight savings time has moved through, there'd still be a little bit more time for heating before the sun goes down, and then ultimately we have this huge area coming through. But here's what we have going on. This is pretty interesting. We're looking at a pretty significant cap for parts of the St. Louis area until about 10 o'clock at night when the LLJ kicks in. But look at the shear. 37 knots at 1 kilometer, 68 knots at 6 kilometers. That's going to really enhance your tornado and supercell development respectively. And let's go ahead now and show you the precipitation with this as well. Precip starts to really get organized and develop, and then you start to see around 9, 10 o'clock at night a more semi-discrete mode entering the St. Louis metro area. Chicago, if for those of you tuning in over there, the Chicago area is going to see a massive squall line, mainly overnight after midnight, I would say, but this does look to me like it's going to be more of an evening and overnight threat, and that could pose problems for what we're going to be seeing on Saturday. So let's go ahead and take a look at that right now. So here's what we have going on for Saturday. We have a day 3 moderate risk, which is as I mentioned previously, that is something you do not typically expect right here. This is a very rare type of situation right here. Probabilistic, 45% hatched. That means there is a 45% probability of significantly severe weather happening within 25 miles of a point. Just for context, what significantly severe weather is, that means strong tornadoes, EF2 to EF5 in strength. That means 75 mile per hour wind gusts at least. And that means up to a 2-inch hail, at least 2-inch hail. That's your significantly severe weather right there. And we already have a 45 hatched for this from the SPC. Enhanced risk extends all the way up to Kentucky from the Gulf Coast. Slight risk hasn't changed that much. Marginal hasn't changed that much. Generic thunderstorms hasn't changed that much. But here's what we have going on. A severe weather outbreak is expected on Saturday from the central Gulf Coast states deep south into the Ohio Valley. Significant tornadoes focused across the south, swaths of damaging gusts, and hail are expected. For a day 3 moderate, and for the SPC to say a severe weather outbreak is expected, you need to be paying very close attention to this. You need to be very careful with this. But here's what we have going on in the deep south. I'm not going to go too deep into this because I have a lot of runs and a lot of models I do want to show you, as well as some of the uncertainty I'm looking at. But I will go over the general gist of this. Forecast soundings show cooling aloft with support of steep mid-level lapse rates atop this moist boundary layer, leading to Cape values approaching 2,000 joules per kilogram, vertically veering wind profiles with strong anvil-level divergence amid moderate instability should support robust updrafts and intense supercells. Significant tornadoes, damaging gusts, and large hail will be possible throughout the afternoon and spreading into Alabama during the evening and nighttime hours. Just to break this down a little bit for you guys, 2,000 joules per kilogram of Cape in the deep south, that's equivalent to about 3,500 joules per kilogram of Cape in Oklahoma. That is a lot of moisture. That is a lot of instability for that part of the south. And that is why I'm very concerned about it. Now, there are some uncertainties with this. Number one, What's going to happen Friday night? Is the convection going to move into the deep south and start tapping into that instability and bust the whole thing? I would say that is less likely of a threat of it busting right there. Because the models and the track continue shifting further and further to the north, especially with that squall setup. But there could be some thunderstorms that move through the region that kind of either one and tap into that instability and kind of kill it off, or two, it does the opposite and starts to trigger and really wear down the cap a bit more. That happened on April 27th, 2011. That scenario. And that is also a rather rare scenario as well. Hey, Tony.
Hi.
Hey, I'm recording a video right now. I'm actually covering the cloud cover possibility for Saturday.
Okay.
Yeah, while you're here, I want very quickly. I want to ask you, what do you I want to ask you, what are your thoughts on the cloud cover?
I think the cloud cover is going to be a problem because look at Friday night into Saturday morning. Look at
Yeah,
the
I'm
storms
watching it
that
in the
roll
deep
through there.
south. Yeah.
Look at the storms that roll through there.
Yep.
Now, I don't know what that's going to do. I don't know if that's going to stabilize the atmosphere if they get too severe and create outflow boundaries. I don't know. I don't have an answer for that.
Yeah, I'm looking at it too. What I'm seeing is for Friday night, we're looking, and I was talking about this previously, we're looking at a lot of the big stuff trending further and further to the north. So maybe some isolated stuff happens in the south, but ultimately, I don't think it'll tap too deeply into that atmosphere from what I'm seeing based on
Well,
the fact that it's shifting further and further to the north.
Spam said there's 2 periods of severe weather.
All right.
I was watching James Spann this morning.
Okay.
I love that man. I really do.
All right.
Um, he said Friday night into Saturday is the first period.
Yeah.
The question remains how much instability would be left if these storms come through the way the
Mhm.
camps are showing.
Sure.
But he's not taking it lightly for Saturday neither.
Yeah.
He told all of Alabamians to be ready for a major outbreak.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. Looks like the Cape is around 2,500, I would say. Let's take a look. Yeah, 2,300 around 12Z Saturday, but then it starts to weaken a bit. But then you have more advection from moisture advection stuff coming up the Gulf that really starts to replenish it, especially in eastern Mississippi and western Alabama, according to some of the runs.
That's where the uncertainty lies because what happens to the atmosphere after these storms roll through Friday night into Saturday morning?
Yep.
The second wave is around 2 p.m. Saturday until midnight.
Yeah.
That's a long time.
Yep. That's a very big time span that we're gonna have to watch.
I mean, I would be more worried about the afternoon than I would be the evening
Sure.
because I think by that time, I think the front actually goes through, doesn't it?
Yeah, the front looks like it looks like the front from what I'm looking at. Looks like it's definitely a lot slower than what we were initially thinking for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a lot slower according to the runs. It doesn't start to move through parts of the region until I would say like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. By 7 o'clock, it's still over northwest central Mississippi. It's a lot
Okay.
slower.
I think Friday night into Saturday is going to dictate what happens in Dixie.
I agree, 100%. Ladies and gentlemen, that's Tony for you. We kind of talked a little bit about that. We're not sure what's going to happen with Saturday. There's still some uncertainty with it, and we'll cover it more on the stream tonight. We're streaming again at 7 p.m. Central Daylight Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, so be sure to stay tuned for that. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you are new. The goal, as always, is to get more people engaged with weather. And if you want to come hang out with us and you want to ask us more questions, be sure to join the Storms United Discord server. We are talking about this 24/7. The link to that is in the end screen. Also, shout out to Daniel as an official sponsor of the Pat's Path Predictor channel. If you want to support the channel more directly, be sure to join my Patreon. It's the first link in the description down below. One last thing I do want to say is thank you for all the new members that joined last night. And I'm definitely going to get some stuff, some content going for members only in the next couple of days while we're dealing with all of this. So stay tuned for that. I'm not going to disappoint you guys. I hope you guys stick around for the long run. But with that being said, have a wonderful day, guys. Stay safe.